Okay, let's dive straight into these core JavaScript concepts.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're really trying to peel back the layers on the fundamentals here, pull out the key stuff so you can, really get how JavaScript works,
Mm,
whether you're just starting or maybe prepping for interviews.
exactly. The goal isn't just what it does, but getting that deeper sense of why it works that way.
Right.
We'll be touching on, well, everything from the engine itself to async stuff and even developer tools.
So where should we start? I guess before your code even runs, something has to process it, the engine.
Absolutely fundamental, yeah. Think of the JavaScript engine like V8 in Chrome or Node as the powerhouse.
Okay.
It takes your script, the code you write, turns it into machine code, optimizes it, and then actually runs it. Understanding this even basically gives you clues about performance, like
Yeah.
why some code might just be faster.
Got it. So it's actively worked on your instructions.
Mhm.
And speaking of instructions, JavaScript has some, let's say, core rules.
Hmm.
Scope, closures, prototypes.
Yeah, those are like the bedrock. Scope is all about where your variables live, where you can access them.
Okay.
And closures, the key thing there is how functions sort of remember the environment they were created in.
Right, the remembering part.
Yeah, it lets them hold on to private data even after the outer function is done. Super useful for patterns like data hiding.
Closures always felt a bit like magic until you really grasp that. And then
Yeah.
there's that one. Yeah, it trips up everyone.
It really does, because the main thing with this isn't where the function is, it's how it's called.
Ah, the how.
Exactly. Is it called as a method on an object? Just a plain function call, or are you using call, apply, bind? That call site, that's what decides what this points to.
Right, okay. How it's called, not where it sits. What about equality?
Hmm.
And type coercion? That feels like where JavaScript gets a bit wild.
It can feel that way. Understanding double equals versus triple equals is super important. Double equals tries to be helpful and converts types before comparing. Triple equals is strict, no conversion. Same type, same value.
So it's usually safer.
Generally, yeah. That helpful conversion with ACL can lead to some really weird bugs if you're not expecting it. You gotta be explicit sometimes.
Okay, so that covers some core synchronous ideas. But things aren't always instant, right? Fetching data, waiting for clicks.
Exactly. And that brings us to asynchronous JavaScript. Environments like the browser are mostly single-threaded.
Meaning they can only do one thing at a time.
Pretty much. So you can't just halt everything while waiting for a network request. You need ways to say, okay, start this and let me know when it's done, but keep going in the meantime.
And that's where promises come in, right? Is the modern way to handle that.
For sure. Promises are huge. They give you a much cleaner way to manage operations that finish later.
Yep.
A promise basically represents the eventual result, either success or failure of one of these async actions.
Like fetching data from a server.
Perfect example. Fetch returns a promise. Then you can chain actions using .then for the successful result or .catch for errors.
Wow.
Much better than older callback pyramids.
And async and await build on top of that.
Yep. They're basically syntactic sugar over promises. They let you write asynchronous code that looks almost synchronous. Much easier to read and reason about.
That definitely sounds like a big step up. What about interacting with the browser itself? Like changing things on the page, handling clicks.
Right, the DOM document object model, that's how you manipulate the page structure. And event listeners for things like clicks or key presses.
And making those network requests we talked about. Even storing data locally.
Yeah, things like fetch for requests and local storage or session storage for keeping data in the browser. These APIs are how your JavaScript actually does things the user sees or connects to the outside world. Essential for front-end work.
Makes sense. And underlying a lot of this are fundamental data structures, right? Arrays, objects, maps, sets.
Absolutely. Knowing when to use an array versus an object or maybe a map or set impacts how efficient your code is.
And immutability comes up too.
Yeah, the idea of not changing data directly, but creating new versions instead. It helps make your code more predictable, especially in bigger apps. Fewer side effects.
Okay. And when things break, which they always do, debugging.
Oh, totally critical.
Yeah.
Getting comfortable with the browser's developer tools is non-negotiable.
Like setting breakpoints.
Exactly. Setting breakpoints, stepping through code, inspecting variable values, checking the console for errors. That's how you find bugs fast.
We also saw mentions of testing and performance stuff, like managing memory or debouncing events.
Right. Those are sort of the next level. Turning code that works into code that's reliable, fast, and easy to maintain long-term. The polish.
And bringing it all together. These concepts, scope, closures, Async patterns, the event loop, they pop up constantly in interviews.
They really do. Being able to explain how they work clearly is often just as important as writing the code itself.
So to wrap up then, really mastering these core ideas,
Hmm.
the engine, type coercion, promises, async await, the browser tools, that's the foundation, isn't it?
Hmm.
For building solid apps, tackling interviews.
It absolutely is. It really comes down to understanding the why. Why does JavaScript behave this way? Not just memorizing syntax. That deeper grasp is what makes you a really effective developer.
Yeah, that makes sense. And maybe something to think about. JavaScript and its whole world moves so fast. Continuous learning isn't just nice to have. It feels like a fundamental part of the job if you want to stay sharp and really master this stuff.
Couldn't agree more. It's a journey, not a destination.